Hi everyone, I hope you're all well. I'm going to do a session now on the last part of Biopsychology unit, and it will be about stress. Okay, so we're still on unit 5, final unit, which is called Biopsychology stress, but I'm just going to focus now on the stress part of this unit. So first thing I'm going to do is read out the assessment criteria, and then I'm going to go through each one, and some I will explain in a little bit more detail what they actually are and what you need to do for them. Other criteria I will explain in less detail. Okay, I've also emailed you um, the information, what you would need to do for these 3 criteria, and also in the email I gave you quite a lot of information on the actual content of the criteria. I've also attached some resources to you, the PowerPoint on stress, and also the main handout on stress. Okay, so uh, these are the 3 assessment criteria. The first one is called 2.1. So I will go through each one individually. So I'm starting with 2.1. Okay. Describe the term stress and describe potential sources of stress, internal and external stresses, and their biological effects. Okay, so I'm going to focus on the definition of stress first of all, and then I'm going to talk to you about the stresses part. In other words, the causes of stress. Um, what is the criterion is about really is the starting point, and it's about definition of stress. You need to know first of all what it means, what it is, okay, and then we will I will be looking at the causes of stress, or in other words, stresses. What causes stress is also known as stressor, and there are internal and external causes, and the biological effects that they can have on the body. Okay, so in terms of definition, there are many definitions of stress, and there are many ways of how you can define stress. So it's entirely up to you uh, which definition you want to put in your assignment, and you want to choose. As long as they are all obviously appropriate and correct and referenced, and if you're going to use quotes, then make sure that obviously you put quotation marks in. Okay, so I'm just going to read out to you some definitions that that stress has been, in different ways that stress has been defined. Okay, so stress is a biochemical and physiological reaction with its origins very firmly in the fight or flight responses of our early ancestors. A good definition of stress is the physiological, psychological, and behavioral responses of an individual seeking to adapt and adjust to both internal and external pressures. Okay, so in other words, it's a combination of physiological, psychological, and behavioral changes or responses or reactions of an individual person, and trying to seek to adopt or adjust to the stresses or the causes, which can be internal and external. Okay. Also, stress is the condition that results when interactions between a person and the environment lead the individual to perceive a discrepancy, whether real or not, between the demands of the situation and the resources of the person's biological, psychological, or social systems. Or in other words, the individual can't cope. Okay. Another definition or explanation is that stress is a type of alarm reaction involving heightened mental and bodily states. It is both a psychological and a physiological response to the environment. Our brain produces a stress reaction when we are in a situation that is physically or mentally demanding. Some stress is normal, and it is good for us, okay, because it keeps us alert and protects us in terms of danger or when we need to act or think quickly. Physical training, for example, is good to keep the body fit, and it places stress on our body. But that stress has a beneficial effect, provided that we don't overdo it. Nearly everyone feels stress on a daily basis. Stress is the body's response to challenging situations and circumstances. When stressed, the body produces chemicals to prepare for fight or flight response. This gives us the energy to fight or run away in life-threatening situations. Even when there is no danger to our life, many situations trigger this response. If we are stressed too frequently, the body may suffer harmful effects. The term stress was originally introduced to psychology from mechanical engineering, where it referred to the tension placed on metals by heavy loads. And from this point onwards, in medical terms and in psychology, a scientist or an endocrinologist called Hans Selye advanced the work of stress and adapted this definition from mechanical engineering to psychology and biology. And Hans Selye also defined stress in three main ways. And they are: one, stress is a stimulus; two, stress is a response; and three, stress as an interaction. So what this basically means: stress as a stimulus is when something from outside comes and attacks the body, some kind of stressor. Okay. So it's what's happening outside of our body. Stress as a response is what's happening inside our body, how we react to stressful situations. And then stress as interaction is when we combine the first two, and in other words, we try to adapt or deal, or in other words, cope with stress. Okay. Um, Also, according to Selye, stress is the non-specific response of the body to any demand made upon it. Okay. So that's the definition of stress. I'm just now going to give a little bit of information on the causes of stress. So going back to what I said earlier, in terms of the criterion itself, the causes of stresses can be internal and external. Okay. There are many different causes of stress or stresses. So in terms of internal, we are talking about things like um, in just read this. Yeah, in terms of internal stress that causes, this is what's happening inside our body. Okay, and the various biological and physiological changes that are taking place. We're not always fully aware of them, but they're happening to us anyway. Okay, and for this criterion, for this particular part, you would need to talk about Hans Selye's gas model, also known as general adaptation um, syndrome, okay, um, or it's known as gas model, okay, and it has three stages, and something happens at each stage. So stage one is called the alarm, stage two is called resistance, stage three is called exhaustion. So you need to know what happens at each stage. This part is what's happening inside the body, so it's the internal stressor or internal cause of stress. In terms of external cause of stress, these include things that are happening outside. Okay, so in other words, these are life events or experiences that cause stress to us. So for example, this could include things like marital and relationship breakdowns and problems, financial problems, death of a loved one, man-made and natural-made disasters such as wars, earthquakes, floods, etc. Okay. Also, it could include simple things. Okay, little things, nothing to do with extreme major life events. Could be small or smaller life events, such as, for example, being stuck in traffic, computer breaking down, or losing house keys, losing a phone, for example, or mobile phone. So that will still cause a stress. Okay, but it's the things that are happening outside, not inside. They are external stresses. Okay, so for this part of the criteria, you would need to focus on something called Social Reducement Rating Scale, or SRRS. Okay, this was introduced and produced by two well-known psychologists, um, Thomas Holmes and Richard Rahe. Okay, so that's 2.1 criterion. In terms of 2.2, um, I provided you with a table, a very detailed table, in an email that I sent out to you. And within that table, I set you to focus on the very last column. Okay, so 2.2 is about the effects. I'm just going to read out the criterion to you again. Okay, um, 2.2. Explain and evaluate some of the effects of chronic stress on the body and behavior. So the chronic stress are basically things that are with us for a long period of time, and these can be some severe effects. And I provided you with the table, so focus on the very last column of that table. Now I'm going to focus and move on and focus on the very last assessment criterion, which is 2.3. So I'm just going to read out criterion to you first. Evaluate three different treatments or therapies for stress. Okay, so um, there are many different therapies or treatments of stress. Okay, um, and for this criterion, you can name in your assignment and briefly explain or describe what these therapies and or treatments are, but the focus has to be on the evaluation. So you have to evaluate three, okay, at least three. So as long as you evaluate, in other words, you give strengths and weaknesses or pros and cons, then that's absolutely fine, okay. And you have to do three, or you can do more than that. You can't do less than three, okay. So in terms of these treatments and therapies, they are kind of split into subsections or major approaches, okay. So I'm just going to give you an idea what these are. So one of the approaches is physiological methods. Okay, so these include things like drug medication and biofeedback. All right, so drug medication is the most popular one. Biofeedback is also very popular. So you need to focus on that. But remember, you have to evaluate. Okay, you can name and explain what the treatments are, but that's not a requirement because the criterion states evaluate. So make sure you give strengths and weaknesses or pros and cons. The other major area or approach is specific psychological methods. So this is different from physiological. Physiological is the biological side, so such as drug medication. Psychological, specific psychological methods includes things like counseling, CBT, something called developing hardy personality. So it's things that are being carried out by professionals, but they have to do with the mind and the psychological aspects. The next approach is general psychological methods. So these include things like that we can do on an everyday basis, that we can do ourselves. So for example, everyday relaxation techniques, natural remedies, self-help. In other words, we don't actually need professional help. We can do these things ourselves and they can help us treat stress. So for example, you might have a certain technique, relaxation technique that helps you, for example, meditation, okay, or you read self-help books and they work for you. The final one is aspects of a lifestyle. So these include things like living a healthy lifestyle, exercise, social support, social network, and things like that. So they are not necessarily professional medical treatments. They are things to do with how what kind of lifestyle we lead. And the more healthy lifestyle we lead or have, the less we will be stressed. And on the other side, on the other hand, if we lead unhealthy lifestyle, then there is a more possibility or chance that we will be um, more stressed, and therefore that could lead to certain um, less serious and also serious or chronic illnesses such as cancer, stroke, heart attacks, diabetes, etc. Okay, so I'm going to finish off this now, and just to on a final note, just to summarize, I have given you information on the final part of the biopsychology unit, and the final part is stress. I have given you information on the three assessment criteria, okay, 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3, and further information is provided in the email and also in all the resources that you already have. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Bye.